Angles and Saxons settled down in British Islands, but they were kinda maybe friendly. Maybe they liked the Brits or liked the climate, I don't know. But history says that they lived quite peacefully on these islands, forming a new British culture and new British language. Everything was quite okay before disaster happens. Approximately in the year 800, the first Vikings invaded England. Vikings came from the north. They were the Norsemen, and their language was called Old Norse. Okay, if you look at this slide, you can see that by this time the major of Europe had to speak this Norse language, because not only England was invaded by the Vikings, they also, you can see the tiny orange spots to the right. This is the modern Russia territory, such as Novgorod, Pskov, Kiev, and down there even Crimea. They were all invaded by the Normans. Also, the major part of France, England, and Iceland. You see, Iceland is a unique country. If you show a modern Iceland dweller, I'm sorry, I don't know how to call them, an ancient text written in ancient Norse language of 11th century, he could read it without any translation, because Norse language was so full, it was sufficient. It was a language of military and common people, and a language of religion, so everybody used it, and it was very, very convenient. You see, our bird on a time scale jumped on the period of Old Norse. The Vikings invaded England and brought their language with them. What is the major legacy of the Old Norse language, which you use every day, maybe even without knowing it? Look at this slide. Those are familiar to you, aren't they? Those are the days of the week. So, you all know that in English the week used to start from Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and so on. It is very easy with a Sunday. It's a day of sun. Okay, the next one is the moon. Okay, two things which brought light on our poor Earth, sun and moon. Of course, let's give them 2 days, Monday and Sunday. What are Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday and Friday? Those are the days named after old Scandinavian gods, which are Tyr, the god of single combat, the god which defeated the Fenrir, who was the legendary wolf who wanted to eat the moon and the sun. He gave his own hands to this hungry wolf, so the moon could still shine upon us. And this is his day, Tuesday, widen, or in Scandinavian, utan, or in some places he is Woden. In England he became Weden, the major Scandinavian one-eyed god. He was the father of many other gods, and his sons were Loki and Thor, which brings us to Thursday. Of course, you all know, thanks to Marvel Comics, this Scandinavian god with a hammer. His name is Thor, a god of thunder, and his day is Thursday. Maybe Scandinavians were more democratic than our modern society, because they all had also female gods, such as Frey. She went across the sky in a chariot with 2 wild cats, or maybe panthers, something like this, so a cat woman. She was a goddess of battle and a good wife for her husband. So they named the special day after her. It's a Friday. Saturday is left after the Romans. They are gods of drinking, of misbehavior, god of underworld. The Saturnus was celebrated every week by a small little Saturnalia. The periods in which people used to drink and sing and dress as demons to keep away the evil spirits. So Saturday was one of the favorite days for British people, and this name of this day still remains. The influence of Old Norse language, the language of the Vikings, was immense for the development of English language. They brought so many words in so many different areas. For example, you can see them in this slide. Die, slaughter, pillage, sad, anger, and blood. Of course, those words come to our minds first when we hear the word Viking, killing, slaughtering, and pillaging. But Vikings were not only crazy murderers and slaughterers. No, they also had very good ways of law, and they brought the word law into English language, along as law, bug, bull, wing, hell and heaven. Those are both Scandinavian terms. Kids, trawl and sail. So, if you go to see some good prices on a season sale, remember that this word was brought by angry, slaughtering, pillaging Vikings to your language. We came to the period called Old English. This is a period of a Norman invasion, of Viking invasion, and during this period lots of things happened to English language, such as the writing of the Beowulf. If you study English, if you are a native speaker, you will always have those Beowulf lessons at school or at the university. What is this? This is ancient Scandinavian type saga, which was kinda rhymed and telling a story about great deeds, great warriors, and wrestling with gods. It was translated from Scandinavian to ancient English language, and then it was written down. The Beowulf is the major saga. 300 years people were writing it down, and it consists of more than 1,800 pages, and those only the ones who survived, who remained until our time. During the Old English period, it used to be a lot of these texts. So, what is a Beowulf? How did it sound? You know that none of the current native English speaker could understand this poem because it sounded more German than English. Just check this out. Kvedat den ossen sefatnik bekom hen huses hu hi grindige efter beprege gibun have done. So this is a proto-English language. The translation goes like this. When night had fallen, the fiend crept near to the lofty hall to learn how the Danes in Hereford fared when the feasting was done. So it describes the Danes, the warriors, and the feast. In other languages, in other countries, for example in Russian culture, there is also a trace of these Scandinavian sagas. A rhymed poem about someone's victories written in a native language. What happens during this period? The loss of grammatical gender. So before the northern invasion, Brits had problem with a cat, a table, a hat or the rain, and now they use the major word it instead of he and she. Also, it's the beginning of phrasal verbs. They took one word from their native language and one from Norse, and they made up new verbs like look after, stand by, give in, get away, or run out. So, the Vikings came to stay. And the Christianity came to stay also. You remember approximately at this time, the famous St. Patrick, the patron saint of Ireland, and other Christian missionaries traveled, risking their lives, literally, on British Islands, Ireland, Scotland, and so on. And the English people, the Angles and the Saxons, were Christian people. So Vikings came there bringing their Scandinavian gods, but the English people had their own religion. On what language did they speak about their religion? The services were all Latin, so common people would never understand what the priests were talking about during the Mass. And that was a problem. So there was a language of the invaders, there was a native language, and there was the third different language for their religion.